Hello everybody, welcome back to It's Current Year. This is another fan submission from our good old friend Way. Today he's taken a different kind of elves, however, and a rather peculiar list in this matchup in particular. Dark Elves versus Vampire Coast used to be an absolute nightmare for the Dark Elves. Has gotten a little bit more even since obviously the massive Coast nerves to handgun ammo and the likes and bombers, but Coast still can be tough in certain situations for the Dark Elves. So right off the bat, this is a very interesting deployment. So we'll have a look at the Vampire Coast army to start with. So pretty stock standard gunnery mob down here in the front, some pistols mixed in. We've got some halberds in the back here protecting Queen Bess. Queen Bess can be a decent pick against the Dark Elves. You can sort of shell repeater crossbows and that sort of stuff. Can be sniped by Reaper bolt throwers, but can generate decent value at distance. The Shade Wraith Gunners, nice pick here, obviously ethereal. Don't have a large HP pool or a lot of unit models, but with their discourage effect on contact and just the fact that they are obviously good range and the like, can be good counter skirmish there. In the air, we've got some gun bats with handguns. Like that pick because they will slightly outrange, ever so slightly outrange Dark Rider crossbows, but Dark Rider crossbows aren't great at shooting air, so they can be a bit of a pest for the Dark Elves to deal with. Over here we just have some more Fellbats. Looks like they're hanging out in a bit of a reserve play to possibly get on some Dark Riders if the Coast player thought they might have Vanguard deployed them. We've got Count Noctilus up on the Necrofex Colossus. He's taken the Moondial for some summons. He's also taken the Wraith Storm and looks like just Invocation and Drown Dead. So pretty stock standard stuff there. Some extra powder and that kind of stuff. Also got two Gunnery Whites. Nice picks. They've taken, can keep replenishing Noctilus's army, potentially give more ammo to the Queen Bess or the Shade Wraith Gunners as well. So more powder here. Looks like he has also taken the Aura on with enhanced ballistics over here. So let's have a look at Way's force. Don't really know where to start here, but there is a big sort of Vanguard force over in the trees. We saw in the early game the Frontline Infantry is basically just Bleak Swords. You really don't want to take too much more in the infantry fight. You can take Corsairs, but Bleak Swords usually get the job done just as effectively. Cold One Knights, 4 of them. Interesting picks because Cold One Knights are good at taking out other armored cav and potentially even single entity monsters. Not great for killing chaff infantry, particularly stuff like undead that they can't break with obviously being a fear causer, and also cheap halberds in this matchup can cause them a few issues. So we'll see how they fare here. Sorceress on a cold one with Burning Head as well as Fireball, and leading the force, it looks like we've got Nilosi, probably one of the worst. Along with the High Elf Prince variant, probably one of the worst generic lords in the game. Don't offer a lot. Okay stats, I guess, but nothing more outside of that. And she's been taken with no abilities whatsoever. So none of the aura effects, no items. We've also got 2 units of Cold One Chariots. They'll be able to kill a lot of zombies. Can potentially even mass block Noctilus here. So it'll be interesting to see how they are used. As we said, here's the infantry. 4 units of Bleak Swords and 4 units of Dark Riders. Dark Riders without shields on this occasion. So let's get the battle underway. And we'll see what Way has to offer this time for the channel. So the Coast player really isn't under any obligation to, or really under any great pressing need to advance here. It looks like Way's slowly coming up here with the Bleak Swords. Dark Riders are probably going to stay hidden for a fair bit. It looks like the Gunbats, I assume they're all hidden in the woods here, but the Gunbats are probably going to just do a bit of a sweeping pass through the woods here to see if there is indeed any Vanguard troops. We might put it on a little bit of a slow play just so we can see what's going on. So the Queen Bess is going to fire away. Some nice duking here being done by Way, and it looks like we have some contact being made here, and this is obviously the Gunbats under no threat here from anything with a shooting attack. Really, there's very little outside of the Cold One Chariots here that can actually pressure the Gunbats, so they're going to be pretty painful to deal with. I'd probably be looking to get them over here and possibly put some damage into the Fire Sorceress, but at the moment the Vampire Coast player is content to take on the Dark Riders, as the Queen Bess does shell away. The Gunnery Whites are going to try and pick off some models from the Cold One Knight unit. That's a good choice there, good bit of target priority. Queen Bess is going to hit a tree. Poor tree must have done something wrong to the Vampire Coast on this occasion. Cold One's just ever so slightly skirmishing around, obviously not wanting to take any fire from the Queen Bess at this stage. Now, already one unit of Dark Riders has been taken out, but the Dark Riders have been maneuvered into the cookie jar here, and a Captain Roth's Moondial is going to come down to put some pressure on these Dark Riders and trap them in. They are likely dead, but even with their ethereal status, bit of damage going down onto the Shade Wraith gunners here, and a nice burning head going down. Probably going to be able to just about crumble off these halberds to the point where the Dark Riders can completely push through and get on the Queen Bess crew. So the Queen Bess's days are probably numbered. Might come at the cost of this unit of Dark Riders again once the zombie pirates do transfer over to attack the Dark Riders. And I think the Queen Bess crew has actually been pulled off. So nice play here by the Vampire Coast player. Noctilus really not under any pressure at the moment. Some good damage has gone into the Shade Wraith gunners. They have lost some unit models. If we can get a burning head down there, or even just a fireball, it might be able to start crumbling them. But the gun bats, it seems, have probably with the help of the Wraithstorm and the Gunnery Whites, has actually managed to shatter this Fire Sorceress, which is a massive blow early in the battle for the Dark Elves. But at this stage, the infantry, even though it's not, Bleak Swords are still just Bleak Swords, but really only one unit has had any damage put into it by the Queen Bess, and they will grind through zombies eventually, particularly once Murderous Prowess does hit. It's probably going to time this actually quite nicely with Murderous Prowess proccing. Nolosi's in here getting stuck into one of the Gunnery Whites and doing a good job. These are not halberd deckhands, so with the help of the Cold One Knights here, this Gunnery White is probably on borrowed time here, is crumbling, is taking some damage, and yeah, the Cold One Knight's actually finding some really great targets, getting a bit of a wrap on this one as well. Both of these Gunnery Whites are going to go down, and Noctilus is probably going to be next on the menu. The Moondial summon, I believe this is a Moondial summon with obviously the little glowing effect around them. Gunbats have been annoying and have managed to chase off the Dark Riders, but the Dark Riders aren't really the money unit here. They've got in and managed to compromise well enough this back line. The Shade Wraith gunners are going to crumble out here with the Bleak Swords coming into contact. The Queen Bess crew, I believe, is yes, it's back on the cannon, but again crumbling out. 21 unit models, but very little HP left. And Nolosi, even though she's only half strength, has managed to put a fair bit of damage into this Gunnery White. Gunnery White obviously now getting the benefit of Invocation, but this is where the Chariots can actually be quite of a pain for the Vampire Coast, I guess. Pinning with some mass Count Noctilus in. The Cold One Knights are going to do pretty well against a large and pretty well armored target. 75, not enormous amount of money, but enormous amount of armor. But it's looking pretty bleak here for the coast, and even with just this withering hailstorm of handgun bullets pouring down into the Chariots, into the Cold One Knights, even into Nolosi, I believe, who's taken a fair bit of damage from them, and the early shattering of the Fire Mage, there's just not going to be enough ammo here to get rid of all the Cold One Knights. The infantry isn't going to be able to buff him out and allow Noctilus to really just sit away and use his ammunition, of which he does have a little bit left. Obviously the infantry here is just providing basically just padding for everything else, but with Nolosi going down, the Sorceress has already been shattered. Could there be a potential for a late game comeback here via terror outs or other means, or just Noctilus maybe being able to heal cap himself? There's a lack of infantry on the field, but Roth's Moondial and the Drowned Dead summons is giving him some padding here, and as we see, terror outs are setting in for the Bleak Swords. Now the Cold One Knights here, 29 unit models, are reasonably healthy from a unit model, but this Wraithstorm's really going to hurt, and the buffing of just bodies in the fight now for the Vampire Coast may prove to be costly here for the Dark Elves. Nolosi has, I think, just plain old shattered. We've got some Dark Riders being chased off here. Yeah, I think Nolosi's either dead or shattered. And now it's basically just up to the Cold One Knights. I don't think the chariots are going to be able to do much. Looks like this one's about to break. Noctilus is getting pretty low, but he probably does have enough with this Arcane Conduit going down for maybe one more invocation. I'm not sure how many of the Rot's Moondial summons have been used in, I guess, in comparison to just the Drowned Dead summon, but the deck droppers are out of ammo, and this is where probably it's been pretty smart play of a way to just keep these Bleak Swords out of the fight now. The deck droppers can, obviously with their unit models, just disrupt the attacks of the Cold One Knights. They are large, so they will take a decent amount of damage from Cold One Knights, but this is basically all on the back of Noctilus now. If he can tank this out through the Hunger and through perhaps another cast of his own healing, he may be able to win the day, but the Cold One Knights here just regaining some leadership, being brought back into the fight. These ones electing to actually terror routing, as they do elect to sort of move themselves out and disengage from the fight. There is a little bit of ammo left on the Cold One Chariots, and they do have decent missile strength, but looks like they're being fairly inaccurate and not getting on the target they need. But well, it was sent in by Wei, so it might be a win for Wei here, but I am thinking that this may just grind into sort of a late game terror out here for the Vampire Coast, unless he can get some really good charges. He's not wasting the deck droppers on, he's not wasting the Cold One Knights on the deck droppers, rather. He's letting the Bleak Swords do as much damage as they can and crumble out the deck droppers before committing the Cold One Knights, without the potential of possibly getting them terror routed. Although there is still, I think, one last shot of ammunition up here on the deck droppers, so they pulled out to use that. And they are going to be diving back down momentarily, I believe. But Noctilus doesn't have, obviously, the ability to replenish any more powder now, with the Gunnery Wights being taken down in the early game. And with another unit of Cold One Knights rallying now to the cause, I think this may be enough for Wei to squeak out a victory here. This unit of Cold One Knights is pulling out to refresh their charge bonus. We're going to have this zombie summoned deckhand mob here eventually dissipate. And I think with there's a Wraith Storm going down on the Cold One Chariots here. I'm not sure that's the right call. I think that needed to go down on these Cold One Knights, because that's really the only thing left that can reliably take out Noctilus. But I think with that, I'm still at a complete loss. I don't know which way this is going. Noctilus does obviously have a fair bit of HP left, nearly 2k. He's getting another Arcane Conduit. I'm not sure which way this is going to go. I'm sort of afraid to call it. I've half called it for Noctilus. I've half called it for Wei here. If it's just the infantry, I'm not sure it's going to be enough, but there are plenty of bodies on the field here. 52, 52, 36, 61 over here. But the issue is going to be terror. One more charge could potentially do it from the Cold One Knights, as Noctilus just wails about here in the thick of it. But no, that is going to be army losses. That is... that was a grind, it's fair to say, and Noctilus will collapse off his big Gundam boat with nearly 2,000 damage value, so nicely done there. But this is a very interesting coast, or I wouldn't call it an anti-coast build, but Chariots here not getting massive, I beg your pardon, 1,500 damage on that Chariot. I'm not sure what they killed, possibly might have got some damage in with Nolosi on one of the Gunnery Wights. But Nolosi's got over 1,000. She's probably, to be honest, probably cheaper than that, with all her abilities, none of her items taken, and all her items cut and none of her abilities taken. Just up on the Cold One, I think she comes in just under 1,000. So you'd have to say she's got her value. She put some damage into one of the Gunnery Wights, pretty much killed them off. The early pickup of the Sorceress was big though, because really the only thing that kept Noctilus in the game for that amount of time was the fact that he could fight on top of his infantry there, and obviously, you know, a large amount of kills, but that was just from the one good burning head. The Gunbats have certainly done their bit there, both over 1,000 damage. Yeah, no real counters there. I mean, the Dark Shards and Dark Rider repeated crossbows can pick them off, obviously, because they are a decently high AP and good DPS unit. But yeah, they could pick where to spend their ammo, and I think they spent it actually quite well. In the early game, they were obviously harassing the Dark Riders, but as soon as it became pretty aware to the Vampire Coast player that all the real threats were on the other flank, they were transitioned over pretty quickly. Queen Bess got 1.2k, so not too bad, but some good juking from Wei, even just on the infantry actually, to clear to not allow them to be just farmed for value. And in the late game, there obviously buying himself some time to rally the Cold One Knights and grind down the infantry before committing them was probably pretty significant. And the Dark Riders were basically just the harassment tool. Not a lot of value on them. I think this one might have been the one that got in on the Shade Wraith Gunners, who really struggled as well, actually. Really struggled to really get any value. So for the Vampire Coast, you probably could have been a different result had the late game infantry been majority halberds over just the regular deckhands. Actually pretty decent value on deckhand mobs, considering what they're worth here. You're not going to really see them with much more than 150, 200 value in any given game. But the deckhand mob, yeah, that's what I mean there. I mean, they would have been fighting some cav, potentially fighting even some chariots that got a bit ballsy and pushed through into the formation. Definitely getting their value back and then some. This one probably got completely torched by a burning head. But as I said at the start, this was going back it's probably going back a while now, probably going back nearly a year. This was an absolute nightmare for the Druuchii. I say that as a Dark Elf main. You really struggled to push through the front line because bombers were really oppressive. Handguns could basically just protect themselves in the back line. You got outranged on your Dark Shards. You pretty much had to get good burning heads or bust. Carronades and that sort of thing were obviously traded reasonably cost effectively with bolt throwers. And then things like gun bats were even viable if the coast player wanted to. You could still go the crab rush, but just the gun line Vampire Coast usually with Luther flying overhead, sniping out your mage, and that kind of thing was really tough to deal with. But completely different approach taken here with the Cold One Knights. As you see, they've all got their value back, bar this one, but collectively they've definitely all got their value back. And the Cold One Chariots, interesting touch. So cool to see some less used lords being, I guess, used as effectively as you probably could use in Olosi, and with some decent targets here, some armored targets. So thanks to Way for sending it in. As always, thanks to you guys for checking it out. And until next time, take care.